Hey, it's welding time again here. Eugene Hughes Motorized. The star of today's video is this machine right here. This is the MIG 200 by Arccaptain. I give it 2 thumbs up. It's a great machine here. This here would be an ideal machine for someone who does a lot of welding. Ideal for a shop, or ideal for someone who wants to buy a welder and hang on to it and have it be the only welder you need here, okay? This will do aluminum welding with the spool gun. Spool gun doesn't come with it. You'll have to get the spool gun and the wire. It does come with the roller for the aluminum wire. Comes with the roller for Flux Core. It does Flux Core. Rollers for MIG welding. It does the MIG welding. It does stick welding, okay? Now, one thing I like about this machine here, it's a powerful, versatile, very flexible welder, and it doesn't have overly complex setting. It has a Synergic mode, which it kind of lets the machine do some of the thinking for you. I'm not going to get overly technical for you. I'm not interested. I'm not an electronics engineer or a welding engineer. I'm a very simple, primitive, make sparks and weld kind of guy here. I don't need fancy welders here, and this here will do it as well. It will do scratch start TIG welding. You need to get you the torch, okay? So right out of the box, you grab you some wire. You can do Flux Core welding, buy you some wire. You can do MIG welding. You got to have the gas bottle set up for it here. And you get you some rods. You can do stick welding right off the bat. And of course, you get you the aluminum spool, optional, plugs in right here in the front here. You can do that, okay? Another thing that I like about this machine here is it's both 220 and 110 compatible here. So your 220 plug from the machine will plug into this, plug this into a 110 outlet, and the machine knows, hey, we're on 110, and it fires off here. You get a little bit less output amperage-wise, of course, because you're putting less electricity into it, but it still does decent welding at 110 volts. Let's take a look at what we get in the box. Of course, you get the main unit, and you get that little side box there. Has all your hoses and cables and whatnots and bits on it. You get a nice long cord on it, 8-10 foot, best I recollect here, and you get a 220-110 power adapter there. You get some extra nozzles, contact tips. You get a couple of extra rollers there, so you're going to be covered in rollers there. You got 10-foot cords on your working clamp and your stinger and your MIG torch there. So let's get some Flux Core wire on it and make some sparks. All right, see what I'm pointing at? That is the setup guide that is inside of the door of the machine where you put the wire. And look at the upper right hand corner there. You've got the polarity for which process you're going to be using. DC electrode negative means you're running Flux Core, and you put the center wire on the bottom front of the machine, which goes to the electrode on the negative, DC electrode negative. And if you're running MIG, stainless, and aluminum, you're going to want the center wire to go to the positive, which goes to your torch for DC electrode positive. Now let's take a look at the settings here just below that, and that is for the manual settings, and it's according to the thickness of the material. It gives you a good guide for where to set your voltage and where to set your inches per minute. The thicker the material, the higher the feed rate you want the inches per minute set, and as well you want to bump up a little bit on the voltage. As well, let's take a look on the left hand side there where the wire type is. It identifies which wire type you're going to be using. Basically ER70S for your MIG process, E71T, which is your Flux Core wire, and then you've got the wire for the stainless and aluminum that you'd use. That will need to be matched to the drive roller, either the V-groove or the knurled, which is for your Flux Core, V-groove for stainless, and U-groove for aluminum. You've got the rollers, comes with the machine, and then as well we've got the gas type and your gas flow rate and the like. So it gives you pretty much everything you need to know about how to run this machine. Okay, so let's do some 20 gauge steel with the Flux Core and see how that works out. This is some thin stuff here, and we'll see if my technique is good enough to do it here. You're not going to be able to just run you a bead from one end all the way down to the other. I certainly can't without burning some serious holes in it. You got to take your time and just do it in a bunch of little bitty tacks and tack it together. This would be suitable for automotive use. Some of the body panel beaters and body repair guys, they like to use 19 gauge steel, which is just a little bit thicker than this right here. So let's see what we got. All right, I have the machine set at 50 amps. We've got the voltage at 1.5 amps up. That's going to give me a little bit of a wider bead. Let's do it at 0.5 amp now that I'm thinking about it. 0.5 amp is going to make it a prettier bead there. I don't want the bead to be too high. Ideally, if you're doing something like this here on auto body, you're going to want to come back and grind it down anyways here. So you want to get some quick penetration and not have too high of a bead height on it. All right, now let's take a closer look and speed this thing up here and see what we're doing. You can see the amount of stick out that I've got on it. That's going to help keep the temperature down so we're not blowing holes, and I'm just doing little quick pulses like little spot welds and sticking it together. This would be perfect welder for an auto body shop. All right, that is pretty doggone good. Some very thin metal. It's tacked up, just a bunch of little stitches and tacks put together. I give that a thumbs up. And as well, you can do it using Flux Core. You won't need the expense of the gas, but if you really want to, certainly you can use the MIG function on it with the gas and get even better welds. But the Flux Core is plenty good if you're on a budget, and you're going to get very satisfactory results. We're 1.5 volts over. I want to get some penetration in there and make the bead as wide as I can. A wide enough bead here, and we are at 100 amps. See how the bead is kind of laying flat into the joint there? That's a result of me bumping the voltage up a little bit. If I wanted more of a rounder bead, I would have turned the voltage down. All right, we're going to do a T-joint, 1/4 inch plate. We're going to bump this on up to 160 amps. We're going to leave it 2 volts over. See what we get. One thing I noticed with this machine, the Flux Core mode does not leave a lot of spatter. You don't really need an anti-spatter spray. You just using your wire brush will clean it off. And yep, look at the red arrow there. That's where I did a stop and start in the middle of the bead. Okay, let's look at the stick welding function and see how easy it is to establish an arc. Wow, that starts fast. Now let's go up to a 1/8 inch rod, bump the amperage up a little bit, and see what we're getting on this 1/4 inch plate. Alright, let's go on to some thicker material, 3/8 inch square bar. I'm using 1/8 inch 6013 rod on it. Let's bump the amps up to 130 amps. Okay, we definitely got some good wet in, good penetration with that. Next up, let's take a look at some 1/4 inch thick plate, a T-joint, 1/8 inch 6013 rod, and we're going to run it at 100 amps and see what we're getting there. Let's go ahead and clean it off. And I can see the slag inclusion on there. So that tells me that I probably didn't get it hot enough. So let's go ahead and continue on at 120 amps and see if I get better. And I'm going to take my time and not move the stick so fast to try to get a little bit more heat onto that fillet joint. And that looks a lot more better there. Let's go ahead and give it the chip a chip and take a look at it, and that is starting to look like I did a good weld there. Alright, so let's move on here. 1/8 inch lap joint, 3/32 inch, 6013 rod. Run it at 80 amps, chip it away there, and at the very beginning I got a little bit of a booger in there. I think I got a cold start, but once I got it in there and started getting the metal to get hot, it made a pretty weld. It's just a matter of practice on my part. I need to practice, and I'll avoid those cold starts there. Okay, let's get on to our last weld. 1/8 inch T-joint, about 90 amps, 3/32 inch rod. And I'm taking my time. I'm doing a nice gentle weave up and down there. And I can see that I've got good wet in with it. And I'm impressed that this welder makes me look a little bit better than I am at this welding stuff here. So if you like to make pretty welds, this is a machine that you can definitely get you some pretty looking welds on. Okay, so one expectation you can have of the MIG 200 is it'll make a substandard welder, that would be like me, look reasonably acceptable. Those are some nice welds. I love how the voltage setting and the amperage settings are very responsive. You just slight adjustments and you notice the difference in the bead profile and the like. I give this machine 2 thumbs up. Check the link down below if you're interested. If you like my video, give me a thumbs up. Click that subscribe. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Take care.